It's 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I'm just about 4 hours late here, Rita.
Rita.
Anita.
Gita. Gita.
Close.
Olympic star Doug Dorsey's the best hockey player in America, and he's about to retire. Kate Mosley was America's sweetheart,
Until Hercules here learns how to lock his grip, this will have to do.
and she's got a nickname that rhymes with rich.
What a
For both of them, the Olympics had become a faraway dream
Here, you try.
until someone
Those are figure skates, pal.
set up the ultimate blind date.
Who the hell do you think you are?
I'm a guy who came a long way for lunch.
Please don't let me keep you from the trough.
Enough!
The king of the rink and America's ice queen just became a team.
Don't quit your day job.
Would you please put me down? Ah, you cretin!
Guess that move needs some work.
You've been doing what? I've been doing a little figure skating.
Finger painting?
As a matter of fact, I do have a boyfriend.
What do you do, keep him chained up in the basement?
I don't like to see her upset.
If I was you, I'd invest in blindfolds. Are they gonna get it? Before they kill each other?
You look really nervous. How nervous are you?
Dorsey and Mosley, the American Olympic team's best shot at the goal.
You're falling for him.
Oh, that's crazy. In case you missed it, I am throwing myself at you. Get out of my way.
No problem. I've been practicing that move for a year and a half.
D.B. Sweeney,
Man, would I love to see you play hockey.
Moira Kelly,
Any day.
The Cutting Edge.
It's not like his nose was perfect.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of ReconCinemation. I'm your host, John Diner.
I'm David Munchak.
I'm Brent Hutchins.
And this is the podcast that takes a look back at some of our favorite films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We're checking out how they hold up today. And today's episode, it's got a special recall for our friend David here with his long storied history on the rink. we did a little romance this month. Now we're doing a little sports romance with the cult classic from the 90s, The Cutting Edge.
Ooh.
The Cutting Edge. I'm excited.
It's an edgy topic here today.
Cutting Edge. Are you kidding? Let's go.
Yeah.
Wow. So this was your idea.
Yeah, definitely 100%. I put this on the list. Yes. And proud of it.
All right.
It's a movie, we'll get into it in a second, but yeah, I've actually been wanting to talk about this for a while because I've never seen it. So it's been one of those just sitting there like, oh, I should watch that. Oh, I should watch that for decades. And finally it's time.
Glad I
got it.
I'm glad you finally came around.
The how many there's some good Olympic movies out there, right? Some good, obviously there's great sports movies, but we have,
Sure.
Kurt Russell's got one and Miracle, right?
Miracle's the one that sticks out the most in my head, but I know there's definitely others. Don't ask me to list them, but I know there's others.
Cool,
Yeah.
Cool Runnings. Cool Runnings is one.
Oh, Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings.
Put a pin in that one.
Put
I
a
think
little
maybe,
foreshadowing.
yeah, maybe we should cover that one. Let's see.
Sure. What about
right.
that Foxcatcher? Is that the Steve Carell? Is that
Was that
Foxcatcher?
Olympics?
Yeah, there you go. That's a nice dark one.
Chariots of Fire, right? The classic.
Chariots of Fire, yeah.
There you go.
Classic.
That's a classic.
They're out there, but I don't know if we, 90s Olympics movies, this isn't even really the Olympics, it's the National Skating Championships, but it feels like it, doesn't it?
You can't beat this movie. All those other Olympics movies are just false.
Well, they get to the Olympics at the very end, though. That's that last competition.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
their path to the Olympics.
It's not even the point of the movie, right? The point of the movie is love.
Love. It's all about love.
That's right.
Okay. Well, let's
Munich.
hit
Munich's an Olympic movie, isn't it? Is that?
It is. I didn't want to mention that one. It's
That's
pretty,
also an Olympics
pretty brutal.
movie.
Well, if you went Foxcatcher, you might as well go Munich.
Yeah, David's going with all the real dark shit.
Hey, human stories happen at all levels of sports.
Yes, they do.
Oh,
they're not always.
There was the Clint Eastwood one that came out a couple years ago about the dude who was wrongly accused.
American Sniper?
No, he was wrongly accused of setting off the bomb at the Atlanta Olympics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What was that?
It's another one. I can't remember the name.
That's like such a good one. I like
it.
That was
decent.
good, actually. Paul Walter Hauser is the actor.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's
so good. He was nominated, right?
Yeah, he was nominated for that, and what a great. I don't know. He's just such an up and coming actor that he's just getting better and better and better each movie. It feels like.
Yeah,
he was Richard Jewell, and don't forget he was also in I, Tonya as one of the scumbags.
That's right.
So 2 Olympic movies for Paul Walter Hauser.
Yeah, he's the epicenter of Olympic movies, we'll say.
He's an Olympic hero.
All right, let's get into it. We're going to start with our 6 degrees of ReconCinemation. Brent, throughout a movie, David and I are going to guess the connection to the cutting edge in as few moves as possible by the end of the episode.
Awesome. I'm going to go crazy here. And because if the audience hasn't figured it out yet, research this time around was maybe lacking, but I'm just going to dig deep and go back with The Princess Bride. Link it to The Princess Bride, which you can find in the archives, John, right?
You sure can. That's at www.ReconCinemation.com, where you can find all our back catalog and wonderful episodes that we've been recording for almost 6 years now.
Bananas.
Wow. That's a lot of episodes.
A lot of episodes, yeah. We're heading straight towards 200, guys. It's coming up in the not too distant future.
Wowie, wowie, wow.
Yeah.
How do you like that curveball? Find the movie we just did. Check it out. Good luck.
All right.
Got it.
All right. So we'll come back at the end here. Brent, let's go back to you. Tell us what's happening in The Cutting Edge.
The Cutting Edge is a 1992 romantic comedy directed by Paul Michael Glazer and written by Tony Gilroy. The story revolves around a mismatched pair, Doug Dorsey, a talented but injured ice hockey player, and Kate Mosley, a prima donna figure skater. After a career-ending injury for Doug, he reluctantly teams up with Kate to pursue a new career in pairs figure skating. The film explores their journey from the initial animosity to a blossoming romantic and professional partnership as they prepare for the Winter Olympics. Fueled by witty banter, competitive spirit, and the challenges of balancing their contrasting personalities, The Cutting Edge is a heartwarming tale of love and triumph on and off the ice.
Couldn't have said it any better, my friend.
Wow.
That's it right there, guys.
Straight from the marketing department.
Straight from Chat GPT. Thanks.
Wow, God. All
Brent's
right,
getting direct faxes from the MGM marketing department.
It's true. That's how we do it. I literally read the back of the VHS.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, are you reading the back of the tape right now?
But
Like,
those are the best, guys.
standing in Blockbuster right now. Like...
Why fuck with perfection, guys? That's all I'm saying.
Don't you want to know what Rex Reed thought about it in 3 words?
Rex Reed.
Rex Reed.
Let's get to the Reed report. The Rex report.
All right, let's go back in time for a ReconCine time capsule. David, bring us back to March 27th, 1992. What's happening in the world?
Oh, man. Well, it's, March 1992. The scrunchie is continuing its 80s domination in the hair accessory market. Sega Genesis is regularly outselling the Super Nintendo. And the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles debuted this month on television, and which would inspire millions of school children to become spies / archaeologists. Vanessa Williams is teaching America how to save the best for last. And Right Said Fred changes pop culture forever with I'm Too Sexy. President George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton keep racking up primary wins heading into the November U.S. presidential election. The Washington Redskins gave the Buffalo Bills their second of 4 straight Super Bowl losses earlier that January. Remember when the Super Bowl was in January, by the way? That was fun.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting back in
Those
the
were
day.
the days. It's been 23 years, but maybe one day we'll get back to it. The defending champ Chicago Bulls, led by Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and coach Phil Jackson, continue their path to a then franchise high of 67 wins and their second NBA title ever. That's all I have, but page me later and maybe I'll have some more.
All right.
I like to send you a page every so often.
Yeah, make sure the beeper's on.
It's usually like 8008.
Yeah,
that's yours. Yeah,
8085.
Yeah, that's just a hello greeting.
If you know, you know.
What a wonderful time March 1992 was. Yeah, Super Bowl. Poor Jim Kelly and leading the Bills to those 4 losses. That was what a great quarterback and a terrible, run of Super Bowl losses.
It's the saddest story in sports history.
It's not. It's not. But
what are you talking about? CTE? Hardly. It's hardly a problem.
Well,
CTE.
Yeah.
That's the. There you go. That's more on the right track.
David, it was the 90s. That wasn't a thing. Didn't exist yet.
It wasn't invented yet.
Yeah, it wasn't invented.
That's a good point. That was the biggest tragedy since Junior Seau.
Yeah,
or Aaron.
Yeah, man. Deep cuts.
Hard times. God bless all of our NFL players.
A lighter cut. Let's get into it with the cutting edge. Brent, when was the first time you saw this film?
Ooh, not at the theater, but on.
What?
Yeah, no, not at the theater. I did see other movies around this time that. Well, it doesn't matter, but I didn't see this one at the theater, and I did see it on VHS. I feel like my buddy Andy is the one that introduced me to this. I don't know why I think that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Yeah, but man, I loved it. Look, early 90s me, sucker for a romantic comedy. You throw some sports in there, especially hockey, which we did not have a hockey team in Houston when I was very young, but we did get an expansion IHL team around this time in my high school years. And I loved going to those games, really loved hockey. So you throw a hockey guy in a romantic comedy and I'm sold. And yeah, I'm a fan of this movie, have been since I first saw it, whenever that was, early in my high school days.
Nice. All right, David, how about you? First time watch, or had you seen it before?
I hadn't seen it before. It's I never wanted to see it. Then I sought it out, but sure, I was aware of it since the beginning. I remember the trailer. I remember the ads. I was like, I don't know who these two people are. I think
you do. See, I don't remember any of that. Like, it just one day a VHS was handed, and I was like, oh, okay, we're watching this now.
Yeah.
Whatever programming I was paying attention to really wanted me to watch. Let's go to the theater and watch The Cutting Edge.
It may have
Ninja
been
Turtles. It may have been the Olympics during that time, because I think this released right after the Winter Olympics of that year.
Is that right?
This is true, I believe. Yes.
So it was Olympic fever had gripped the nation. Everyone, Americans, we love the Olympics. We love talking about the Olympics. We like Olympic movies. We like songs about the Olympics. We love watching documentaries. We are a big Olympics heavy country.
We love not remembering the name of movies that are based around the Olympics. I mean, classic moves, guys. Classic moves.
This was my first time watch to jump in, and that's why I'm like, what? Who picked this?
This guy.
Well, you picked it, and I backed it up. So,
facts.
This is actually a first time watch for me. It's not very often for me that we're covering movies that I haven't seen before, but this is one of them. But it's been on my radar since, I don't know, probably like 93. I don't remember promos for it for when it was in theaters, but I remember when it came on, like, cable and pay-per-view and all that. And I remember seeing commercials on TV for it then. And when I was working at my very favorite video store, Suncoast Motion Picture Company, a colleague there, we used to, anyone who's been in Suncoast has to know they used to run movies, in the store all day. And
that's every video store, John. Every video
right.
store
They all do it. Yeah. It's a thing, but nobody remembers video stores. So except us.
Sad.
So a colleague of mine loved this movie and just demanded, I always wanted to run like Jurassic Park and Back to the Future and big movies like that. But they wanted to run The Cutting Edge, and we ran it like almost every time they were on the clock for a while. So I kind of heard it in the background, saw little snippets of it while I was working, but never sat down and watched the movie all the way through. And
did everything possible to ignore it while it was playing.
Yeah. I was like, can I re-alphabetize the comedy section? Dump it on the floor and let me reorganize. But yeah, so I hadn't seen it till just now. So I really barely remembered. I remembered a couple of moments from it, but most of it had been deleted from my brain. So and watching a movie like this for the first time in present day,
magical, right?
It's quite jarring.
Yeah, it is. It's a time capsule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Movies are not made like this anymore. This is like probably one of the most 90s movies that we've covered.
Yeah, it's solidly locked into the 90s. But it's still charming. The charm carries over.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I was, the movie is, we're going to get into much greater detail, but the movie is very formulaic and very by the numbers, kind of predictable. Like, exactly where this movie is going to end up and all the steps to get there. But when I got to the end, I was like totally on board with it. I was like, yep, these guys should be together.
It sells you on it. Like you're absolutely right. It's 100% formulaic, but I think by the end, for me, it's the relationship between the two. I think that it's very charming. I think that it's very believable, even though the formula of the kind of polar opposites attract kind of thing, it has been done hundreds of times over. I think their performances and the chemistry that they have with each other really work and kind of sell you on it. Plus, they're not. The further we get into the 90s and the 2000s, a lot of these movies end up forgoing like that real chemistry and just throwing like mega stars in there and hoping that that's going to be enough to like carry the weight of it being, a retread of another romantic comedy of some sort. Right.
Well, are you saying that if this movie had Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson in it, that you wouldn't see it?
I do not. I mean, of course I would have seen it, but I don't think it'd be as good.
I agree entirely. Yeah. Got way out of control in the 2000, the later part of the 2000s and early 2010s.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman and Ashton Kutcher, of course.
They gotta be in it.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about, I don't know if it's, particularly 80s and 90s movies, that storytelling in a lot of films was much more straightforward all across the board, really. Not everything, but like even big movies like Apollo 13, like very straightforward. There's not a lot of twists and turns and a lot of like surprise, gimmicks that kind of got popular, in more recent years. But
well, isn't that kind of nice though? In this, I feel like it's kind of nice in this case, having that relief from the fact that like, it feels like everything today needs some sort of twist or underlying moment that is jarring of some sort. And you're right. This is straightforward. You know what you're going to get. It's not overly complicated. It's a very simple story, and I think that benefits this movie.
Totally. And it's very similar to how I kind of felt when we talked about While You Were Sleeping, which you can check out in the archives at ReconCinemation.com. It was our holiday episode this year. It's like, what's going to happen. But you know what? It's okay kind of just sitting down, like get on the couch, get a blanket, and just like chill and watch this movie.
Snuggle up to a loved one.
Yeah. No, I agree though. It's not every, whether it's, romantic comedies or whatever kind of subject, like stories get so complicated and they're so, I don't know. It feels like a lot of, I don't know if it's studios or writers or directors feel like they have to gimmick it up now to keep it interesting and keep an audience engaged. And a movie like this is just really like, nope, this is the straightforward story. We have basically 4 characters in the movie. that it's a very quiet movie. It's just, most of it is just the 2 of them with the coach there, and then Terry O'Quinn like one level removed, and that's it until we get to the championships later on. I don't think there's anything wrong with that kind of movie. Granted, it's not for everybody, and I don't think a massive audience is going to rediscover and love this movie because of how stylized 90s it is. I mean, those there's like that motion effect that's done.
That part to me is, I think, the most like aggravating, and it takes me out of it the most. And there are elements, again, not original story, whatever. There are elements to the filmmaking of this, like camera work and things like that do take you out. There are some parts of it that are absolutely amazing. Like, I do actually think that a lot of the figure skating scenes that aren't caught up in like the weird kind of blur effect that they're doing is actually pretty decent. Like the fact, I don't believe either main actors had any kind of ice skating background going into this, but they both look super comfortable on the ice and in a lot of the ways that they're doing it. And I don't know if they're using doubles or not. If they are, they've hidden them really well, but there are certainly moments where you see and you know that it's them and they look really natural out there. So like some of that is really well done, but yeah, that weird blur effect, which they use constantly, is very cheesy by like today's sensibilities. Like you watch it and it's like, what the F is this? Like, come on.
Well, do they have to shoot it that way, or is that all in post? Because it's like, instead of just shooting it in slow motion, which they could have done, it seems like this is an added effect later. Like, oh, we need to spice this up, and so it's just post. So they didn't plan on it. So and you can just tell it's like they, it's an attempt to like sort of sweeten the scenes a little bit, give them a little goose,
or hide deficiencies. Maybe
I think it's that.
Yeah. I was gonna say they really have to mask that our actors are not skating right in the best moves or anything. So sorry, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, that blur effect or that motion effect really reminds me of like the first season of The Real World. I feel like that's that's kind of an interstitial gimmick they do, but which was the same year. But
that reminds me, who played Punky Brewster? What's her name?
Soleil Moon
Frye.
Yeah, did you see her like documentary like with her since she was a kid and then through her teen years and in Hollywood, like she videotaped everything, like she was always walking around videotaping her friends. And then like at one point the prosumer camcorder that she got had like a strobing camera effect, so it only would film like 2 frames and then pause, and then you keep hearing what's going on, and then you see the 2 frames like a second later and it catches up. So it's like they fell in love with this thing. So like half of her like footage is this like really terrible prosumer effect, and you can't fix it because it didn't actually record frames of video. It would just pause on a frame, keep recording audio, and then keep going. So it created this weird strobe thing, and it ruined a lot of, like, to me visually it's just it's horrendous to keep up with. But like you can just tell, like, oh, that's the new feature of this new camcorder I'm using. So they just used it all the time. And it's just like, yeah, these like effects don't make videos better or visual or anything visual better. Like they're
No.
all gimmicks, or
Yeah.
they have to be tools to hide deficiencies, like we're saying.
Yeah,
Right.
I think really, yeah. There's the actors, Moira Kelly and DB Sweeney you're correct, Brent. They did not have any kind of formal training or informal training going into this movie. So it's interesting that they're cast in general, which we're going to come around to. But once they got cast, they went through really intense training, a la the montage sequence that we see in the film. But and they got really good. And there's definitely shots where you can tell it's them, but they did have doubles, and I think that effect was a way to just kind of make it that part a little hidden. And that was just the style of the day. And like the intense zoom of the late 60s.
Right.
It's just a visual element that doesn't really translate anymore.
Yeah, it dates it.
For sure.
It definitely dates it.
Like that, I agree. That one move is to me what dates the movie the most.
I agree. I mean, there's also the soft focus kind of thing throughout, which
I didn't mind
which we
that,
also,
though.
I mean, we see that, we talked about this in The Princess Bride as well. We saw that in The Princess Bride, but it seemed to work better for that story because that story is a fairy tale, right? And so like that soft focus, I think in that podcast we mentioned how it kind of likens to like the watercolor paintings of the old, like, princess stories and stuff we would read, as a kid. This, it just doesn't, it's got more like that dream sequence Dallas effect to it, where it's like, they used to say they like rub Vaseline on the lens to make like this, it's got that kind of look, and it does very much, I feel like, date it. And then you couple that with that weird transition thing, and it's that part's pretty jarring and certainly makes it feel older.
You know what though, for me personally, I didn't mind that as much. It sets the movie apart to me visually, that there's not a lot of movies that use that style, and I think it makes the movie distinct. So in a sense, I think it's also because of the romantic side of it. The love story is just kind of a foundation of supporting that. But I didn't mind it for this particular movie. If there were a lot of movies that were using it, I probably would have hated it. But because it feels like it's one of the very few, it's really off the top of my head the only one that I can think of in the 90s that does use it. There are probably more, but this is the only one I can think of. So for me, I didn't mind it, but I totally get it. Like it can take you out of the movie as well. So you're either going to buy it or you're not.
Yeah, I just think I think it very much roots it in the 90s and doesn't allow, like, I think if you didn't have it in there and you didn't have the other kind of like dated elements, like the story and stuff like that, I think would actually hold up, and you could watch it now and it could be contemporary and work, and as long as you were still able to recapture kind of that chemistry between the lead actors and things like that throughout the course, like it would play better than 95% of the romantic comedies that are made today, right? Because most of them are, I mean, at this point, like they've all, like this is 92, right? And, this formula has been milked from 92, from even before that to now. And it's, very, very much rinse repeat, and they don't have the star power anymore or that kind of thing going into it. So I think you have to have actors that carry the story, and because of some of the effects and stuff that they did, like it just doesn't translate as well.
I agree with that, like that it's sort of indicative of its era and stuff, but I do like that artifact. It's almost like I don't like, especially today, and like everything's just the sharpness of so many things. Like there's some projects, movies or TV, and it looks too good to be like, especially if it's a period or something, it looks too sharp and too in focus and not contrasty enough a lot of times, depending on the project. And so like where you would use atmosphere or like and sometimes it's lacking. These modern ones are lacking in atmosphere, so it's just really nice looking picture, but it doesn't really help tell the story. And so to like, it just needs some softness. It need like sometimes these like modern ones, they just look good because it's high resolution digital photography.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. Yeah, this is a different visual look that points me to that era. I like a little softness. That's nice. It makes me feel warm.
Yeah.
Comfortable.
Cozy.
Let's talk about some of the players involved in the making of this film. Director Paul Michael Glaser, who most people would know as Starsky from the 1970s cop show Starsky and Hutch.
The OG.
Yeah. But like Leonard Nimoy, would go on to a successful directing career. He directed The Running Man, which you couldn't have two movies further apart, although there is a bit of a skating sequence in The Running Man as well.
That's right. Did this come before Running Man?
No, Running Man was like 87. Then
that's where he really got his taste for filming on ice.
He said, you know what? Either I make a movie about Sub-Zero or I do a movie about skating.
I'm glad we got both worlds.
Yeah. He directed The Running Man, then this film, The Cutting Edge, but he also did The Air Up There and the classic Shaquille O'Neal film Kazam.
Ooh.
That's right. It's not the Sinbad film Shazam that we've all seen. It's Kazam.
Wait, does the Sinbad movie Shazam actually exist? I hear
we've all seen it. Everybody's seen it.
I don't think so. I think it's one of those crazy Mandela effects.
It sure is. It's like the one.
Yeah, Shazam does not exist, but I remember that fucking movie.
We all do. We remember the posters. We remember seeing it. It existed. It was in stores. Just can't find it anymore.
Nope. It's been wiped.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to Paul Michael Glaser about it. And then he would go on to a huge TV directorial career, and he would continue acting as well.
Yeah, I wasn't a Starsky fan. I never caught those in the reruns and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was a little bit before my time as well. I feel like it was not on, like my my kind of barometer for older series is whether or not it was on Nick at Night, and I don't recall Starsky and Hutch ever being on Nick at Night, so I missed it.
Yeah, I feel like it ran on like Saturday afternoons on regular TV, and that was not a time. If I was watching TV at that point as a kid, I was really bored.
Yeah, it was like Chips, Starsky and Hutch, and reruns of Lou Ferrigno's The Hulk. Like,
yeah, oh my god,
that was the block.
But he has done, some interesting films. I think probably The Running Man is your biggest. This is probably your next biggest. But and I think he did an interesting job of casting here, which we're going to come to the cast in just a second. But he's working with a script written by, I couldn't believe it when I saw it, was Tony Gilroy.
The Tony Gilroy?
Film. Yeah, who's like, this is his first movie. I mean, and a lot of people, a lot of writers, especially and directors too, that the first movie they direct or write is not really what they're going to be known for potentially. Sometimes they're just getting a foot in the door. They're just getting something to get that first credit going. And then once they get established, then they can really build their career. And it feels like that is the case for Tony Gilroy here, because if you look at pretty much everything afterwards, they're very serious, very heavy projects that
so John, for our listeners, what are some of those projects if they're not familiar?
Well, I mean, right after this, he goes, here's just a handful of them. Dolores Claiborne, The Devil's Advocate. He wrote Armageddon, a number of writers who wrote Armageddon. A whole bunch of the Bourne films, the Jason Bourne films. Michael Clayton, Rogue One, and most recently Andor.
Yeah, and those are solid.
Yeah, I mean,
There are some things in here that I would chop down, but Rogue One and Andor are solid.
Yeah, for sure. But they're all huge projects and, big movies, parts of franchises. And really, I think you just a sidebar about Star Wars for a second. In all the ups and downs, mostly downs of the recent Star Wars projects, the ones he's been involved with have been like probably arguably the best.
That's my point. I think so.
I'm a big fan.
As a film, Rogue One is, I think the most solid as an actual film. That it doesn't necessarily feel it has a distinct feel. It doesn't, it maybe on the surface it looks like a Star Wars movie, but it doesn't seem that way. So
no, but that's the same with Andor as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Andor is very similar in that capacity.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job of capturing that visual style and the tone from Rogue One, and keeping that with, obviously there's a connective tissue there, but keeping it that way for the series. And one of the most engaging, for adults, the adult Star Wars fans, like finally had something to chomp into.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with adults just having something for Star Wars. Like I get they're all kids movies, but to be challenged a little bit, I think is good. And John, I can't wait for you to watch Andor. I think you're gonna love it.
Yeah, it's I'm a little behind on my Star Wars. I got a little Star Wars out, so Andor's on the list.
You've got plenty of time.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen bits of it, but and it's something I want to just engage into when I can allot the time.
Of course.
But yeah, it's so crazy to think that the person who wrote all those projects wrote The Cutting Edge.
Yeah. This is the one that broke him into the business.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But like we talked about, it's the formula, right? Like it's the romantic comedy formula, the mix that with the sports, what makes a good sports movie, that the triumph at the end, the build to that, the hard road of not getting along and having to find their the characters have to find their chemistry with each other, but they find it in two different ways. And having the big win at the end on both sides of it, that's it kind of works perfectly. So why mess with it if it's going to work? Let's talk about our actors too. We'll start with, since there's only really 4 actors in this movie. There's more, but really 4 characters that we focus on. DB Sweeney, man, this was right in that period of time where it felt like the industry was really trying to make DB Sweeney a big star.
Yeah, he had a stretch, man. He had a stretch right around here that was great. I mean, 8 Men Out, Memphis Belle, Fire in the Sky. 8 Men Out and Memphis Belle. Like, I love those movies. Fire in the Sky, I remember being extremely popular. It was a big movie at the time coming out. A lot of attention. I haven't seen it in years, but I just remember
I just rewatched it.
And any good?
It's good. It's good. I mean, it's interesting. It comes at a time like right before the X-Files, and probably is something that influenced it in the way, the way it was done.
Robert Patrick was in that, right? And I feel like he was coming off of Terminator 2, right? And so he was a pretty hot commodity at the time. Like Terminator 2 had changed cinema forever, and he was a big part of that. And so I just remember it being hugely popular. So for him to be included in that, or part of that, he couldn't have just been a nobody. But then after that, he sort of just disappeared again. I know he's done stuff, but he kind of fell out of the limelight. He didn't become a huge megastar. He's done a number of things since, and he's fairly, he's good in the things that I've seen. But they're not big deal. They're not like a big thing, a lot of TV and things like that.
Yeah, he's DB Sweeney's one of those actors that sort of bridged that 80s, 90s, the gap between the 80s and 90s, that he was, coming up second half of the 80s was still a star, and the first half of the 90s, but hard to, as the post Tarantino world of cinema kind of changed. He's one of many, many actors who could kind of didn't necessarily fit into the new style of acting and actors that was kind of coming up in the later part of the 90s. And of course, yeah, he worked and was moved into TV and worked all over TV for, I mean, to this day he's still kind of floating around, but never really had that star status. Kind of not too long after this movie it kind of changed for him. But it's interesting, like, just seeing his career path, that I don't know if he fit better in ensemble casts, because all the movies we kind of mentioned, they're big ensemble pieces, and he fits great in those. Standing on his own as a leading man, I don't know, maybe, it didn't, I guess it sort of proved maybe that wasn't where he fit in best. But 8 Men Out, Fire in the Sky, what was the other one? 8 Men Out, Fire in, yeah, and Memphis Belle was, all large casts.
Lonesome Dove was another one of these huge miniseries of the time.
Oh yeah,
also a big ensemble cast.
Yeah, and Fire in the Sky, like he's got a very, the story is him getting abducted by aliens and experimented on, and then whether that actually happened or not. So a lot of the movie he's not in. Like, it's Robert Patrick and the rest of his group of friends kind of carrying it and telling the story in the town, whether the police, whether they believe them or not, or it's fictionalized. And there's a whole long story that goes in real, it's based on a true story, and a whole backstory that goes along with that. And then DB Sweeney reappears, and then it's, kind of seeing it through his eyes. So it is an intense performance, and a really good performance too. So
yeah.
What do we think about what do we think about Doug here? Do we, Doug's character, Doug Dorsey is just to recap, is a hockey star, right? I mean, is it portrayed, is he like the best? Is he like the Michael Jordan of hockey here? Wayne Gretzky, really, I guess.
He's amateur, right? Because he's in the Olympics, but they talk at the very beginning about how there's a number of NHL teams that are excited to be bringing them on, right? Because he's going to be going from the Olympics into the NHL, and I think he's probably the top college prospect or whatever. And so there's a lot of potential there, but he gets injured and doesn't happen for him.
And we don't really know much about him other than he's a womanizer, right? That's the first time we see him, is oversleeping in bed with a woman whose name he doesn't really remember, and he's got to get to the rink.
Yeah, but to be fair, he does say her name is Rita, and her name is like Skeeta. So it's like there's something.
Gita, I think.
Gita, yeah, Gita. It's like, I get it. He's young. Look, not cool, but he was close.
Yeah. It's sort of like, typical character, especially from this era, of what you'd think for, a single athlete.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily. I think that's the point. I wouldn't necessarily call him a womanizer, because I think that like kind of paints him in a bad light. I'd say he's,
he's not James Bond.
Playing the field.
Yeah, exactly. Coming off recently watching some James Bond movies, when you talk about womanizing,
yeah,
I think that he's very likable throughout the movie, I think, and we're pulling for him, when he gets injured, and when he starts skating with Kate, like he's kind of the average Joe guy, because she's very hoity-toity, she's very difficult, and he's like, I think, the person that most of the male audience members are obviously going to relate to, right? But so I just want to be careful with calling him a womanizer, because I don't think that that's very becoming. But I think that
That's fair.
I think that you're right. Like he's living a lifestyle of like a young bachelor, right? And so he has the world in his hand. He's got everything coming to him, and he is aware that he's a big deal. So when all that gets taken from him, I think in a lot of stories you'd see people like fold, and like if this was a different movie, he'd have to be pulled out from being an alcoholic and all sorts of dark places. But no, he goes and he like still tries to pursue his dream, and at the same time help support his brother in his business, as his brother owns a bar, and he's like building some housing behind the bar, probably for himself, because he's got no real prospects of anything else going on, but yeah, I don't know. Like I like the character. I think he's the perfect kind of mix of kind of, mental like toughness to be able to make through that kind of stuff, but also he's got a charm and a humor to him that I think ultimately is great to help kind of break down Kate's walls and like become relatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're following his story too, right in the beginning. That it's real. I mean, we're seeing her, of course, but we're following him as he's brought into her world.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree that I think, yeah, maybe that term was a little harsh for him. He's not Sean Connery, James Bond, for sure.
Yeah. I think it's just a good contrast. But like, yeah, and it's famous that in the Olympic Village, all the athletes are hooking up. Like
that's fact. Yeah,
they're the most athletic, young, hormonal people all in one giant city that they can just, and then with security, so like outsiders can't even come in, and they get to just whatever happens. So of course you're going to forget the person you just met 2 hours ago, and who needs names? I mean, and listen, he thought he had it, so yeah. So other than that, but like, yeah, you don't get a sense that he's like, there's no real opportunity for it. But it's not like anytime there's another woman on the screen, he's like, well, what's her deal? Or he's ogling her, or
right.
Because you would just throw in those little bits if you had to, like him just being distracted by another pretty ice skater or a reporter or whatever. So none of that ever happens. But so he's fancy free. He's lost his career prospects, but he's figuring out where he's going to go. So he's just that everyman guy.
Well, and in fact, going kind of in the other direction, they're very like cautious about building the relationship between the two of them, that it doesn't immediately go like there is no, sexual chemistry, not very apparent right away. At least, they don't realize it. And that's part of the story, is that they don't realize it till way late in the game. That,
oh, sorry. I was just going to say, they do a great job of establishing that both these people are from very different backgrounds and different sides of the track, right? Like he's very blue collar, working with his hands. His family's blue collar. Like he's a hockey player, right? Like that's physical and, like jarring in a way, like very, like violent. And she is very white collar, she lives on an amazing estate that has its own, hockey or ice skating rink. Ice skating is much more fluid and gentle and choreographed. And, I mean, it's just like, they're very different, and like, I think it's great the time that it takes to kind of to break down those walls and have them not only figure out how to be partners on the ice, but as they're doing that and learning how to like work together, they're, like they're growing attached to each other, and it takes until the end of the movie for either of them to realize it. But it's that journey along the way that helps them get there.
Yeah, totally. let's talk about Moira Kelly too. That since we're kind of talking about both of them, she was she's another interesting actress. She's came from a very religious background and was kind of carefully picking the roles that she took that kind of didn't go against her religious beliefs, and kind of one of the famous ones that she did take. She actually has an incredible 1992. She does The Cutting Edge, Chaplin, which guess what? You can listen to in the archives at ReconCinemation.com, and Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, where she took over the role from Lara Flynn Boyle, who played the character Donna Hayward in the series. She took it over in the film version of it, and there's a very graphic, sort of sex scene / orgy that happens. That was a very specific thing she had to take up with her church and make sure that it was being done, I guess, tastefully enough for them. I don't think she ever did anything that graphic again after that, but yeah, I mean, she was almost a nun. Like, she was either going to be a nun or an actress, and became an actress, but still kind of kept those beliefs, and then went on to a big I mean, I didn't realize that she'd done a voice in all the Lion King films. So yeah, that's
Queenella, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then she would go on to star in what, Brett?
I was just gonna say a fairly large role in the Lion King.
Yeah. I had no idea that was her. And then she would do One Tree Hill for, I think, the whole run of that show. So that's a pretty long, successful career. Moira Kelly isn't a name that's kind of you see very often currently, but that doesn't mean, she still had a great career, obviously. And her portrayal of Kate, I think, like, Kate is a little bit extreme, maybe pushed for my taste, like a little too far. Like, we get the point, we get it that she's got very high expectations of her skating partners, and she's been let down over and over and over again. And I think every time she gets let down, she raises the bar more and more. So eventually, when we meet her, we're at a point where, like, no one's going to reach that level, that something's got to happen to kind of force her to accept somebody. And Doug is the last, they say it, like, Doug is the last one that they're going to try this with her.
She's a challenge, right? So her standards are high. She's used to, she's a winner by nature, really. So she struggles to get that. The whole thing is to get that gold medal. She failed it in the '88 Olympics, and it's something that, and it's part of her journey is figuring out, like, what does she really want to do with her life, like, because it's just been that, and now she's finding this relationship with this guy that's opening her up, and that it makes her look at, they don't spend enough time with it, I think, but it makes her examine her relationship with her current fiance, who's a Harvard MBA money guy, like, and she's seeing, like, there's a different world out there with Doug being there. So I think both characters get a little disservice about how they get changed. I think we could spend a little more time with it, but it's not important otherwise, because it's a natural thing. So, like, it's you can keep buying into the conceit of this movie because it follows that formula. You could make it a little more dramatic, but what's the point if you just want to kind of have fun and let the next beat come?
I just want to say, I think, I agree with what you guys are saying, but I also think that I see it from a little bit different perspective as far as her character. Like, she is certainly heavy-handed in her, like, hoidiness and her snobbery and whatnot, but it also plays to me a little bit like it's someone who's overcompensating for some of their own weaknesses, which we do find out later in the movie. Like, a lot of the failure that she went through early on, she was casting that blame onto her other partner, but it was really kind of her own misstep. And I think, like, her father thinks that she's perfect and expects her to be perfect, like, especially, like, he's 100% focused on her since her mother passed away and all that. And I just feel like, yeah, maybe it's heavy-handed. I don't know. Like when I watch it, like I also think that it's like a character thing, and it seems more like a choice in her performance than it being like way too like overdone, because I'm kind of feeling like it's more about her trying to hide her deficiencies than it is anything else is kind of my take.
Yeah, I totally see it. I think were that movie made today, there's a couple of things I think you could lean into a little more. And I think exactly that is, at least in the beginning and maybe the middle, like where you could really work in some real nice character beats and dig in a little more on her character. Because of, you know, at this time, a lot of these films were very surface level, and you're not like, same thing with Doug, with the, you know, the eye injury and his whole career and life being thrown upside down. Like you could really lean into that more, of how devastating that was and how everything was taken away from him. That you know, those, I think those are both angles that from a modern perspective you'd probably focus on a little bit more than here. They kind of like touch on them and move on.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they don't linger, you know. And whether my perspective is accurate or not, you know, is you know, up for debate. I'm just, you know, like I think that that's my takeaway from it. But I don't think that they do anything in the movie to necessarily lead the viewer in that direction, right? It's just to your point, like it's just not anything. You know, it's kind of a more superficial, kind of straightforward story where they're not getting into too much depth about that kind of thing.
Yeah, the characters aren't very self-aware. It's just that the audience isn't privy to the things they're not aware of either. So
right.
It makes it just, so it's just a easy breezy, superficial kind of way to go through the story. And
I just want to touch on Terry O'Quinn for a second, who plays Kate's father and financially supporting her career. And Terry, come on.
Love Terry.
Welcome Terry. Back. We, we covered Terry on our Young Guns episode, on our Silver Bullet episode. I was always a fan growing up. He's great in with The Stepfather. I think the first two films, but he, or maybe it was just Stepfather 2. I can't remember now.
Wait, what?
He was in the movie The Stepfather.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
Yeah,
okay.
We'll
get to it one October for you, David.
Yeah, right.
Coming up. He was so great and was this character actor that we saw kind of all over the place in the 80s and 90s, and then kind of disappeared in the latter part of the 90s. But then when Lost came on, was, I think, one of the most popular, definitely one of the most popular characters from that show, and spawned a whole second life to his career. And I was just so happy to see that somebody who's been around and been working, you know, so hard and finally it pays off for him. But his character here, even his character, like, we don't get anything about the father. You know, there's really, like, he's just there to kind of give some exposition, right? And move the story along. That there's there's so much more you could have done with an actor like that, like Terry O'Quinn, but you know, that wasn't what they were going for. So that was a miss.
All you need was a pencil thin mustache, and you say, just Terry, do your job, hit your marks, go home. We know what you can do. Yeah. We don't need to challenge you any further.
That was his first question when he met Paul Michael Glaser, was mustache? No mustache.
Yeah. And how thin? if mustache.
Yeah. But just great seeing him in here, even if his character wasn't that, didn't really have the depth.
Yeah.
Doug's brother, who owns the bar, who is also sort of a character that Doug can sort of bounce off of, right? Very opposite to Doug. And I just kind of loathed that character, not necessarily the actor, but it was just It was such a, like, I guess sort of not really an antagonist, but the only other part of Doug's life that we see, that there was something about that character that really just bugged me.
Really? What?
I think it's the scene where Doug comes back to the bar after he's been training and has to kind of like that scene I felt was so awkward of like and forced, where he's trying to celebrate Doug, but nobody realizes that he's doing skating, figure skating and not hockey.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you
even
think
when
that's on the brother though? Like, I feel like the brother, like the other times that we saw him, and I don't know, like it is what it is. I thought, I don't know who that actor is. To me, like that's some guy that they just pulled off the street to he's probably the guy who owned the bar. Like,
no, it's Chris Benson. He was a working actor.
Is he? Because
yeah.
I was like, man, this performance is great. I was like, this guy, I'm sold on. And now I'm more thinking of the first time we see him when he's like at the bar trying to get Doug to help him for the shift or whatever. I'm like, oh, this guy's really good. Like, I get it. Like, he's a frustrated brother, like frustrated older brother. I totally know that feeling. And then later when he's all like super supportive and he's clapping and he's very proud of him for the skating, I completely glazed over the middle part where there was that awkward bar scene though. So I do recall the scene, but I didn't focus on it much. I
don't know if it's hard for me to tell if it's his performance or the way he's being directed, but there's something that feels very like it kind of took me out of the movie. And it's a small character. It's not like a major role or anything, but it felt very forced and unnatural. So it just bumped me a bit.
Yeah, he's a little intense right out the gate, and then they have this screaming match in the backyard, like over this.
I'm an actor acting. I'm saying the words, like that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's too much of a shortcut to get their like relationship sort of started in that opening scene, but this movie is about the economy of every scene. Like, just get to the point and get out. And
when we do that. When we do the cutting edge, the limited series, 8 episodes, you can really dig into the brother relationship.
Oh yeah. And there'll be just one episode that's focused on him and him going in, and he's like, he went to the Iraq war. He was at the Iraq war, he has all this trauma. And then at the end he sees his brother and gives him a hug. So, he's driving the van around town, making pickups for the bar, Yeah. He's just he's having character. Yeah, we examine him. Definitely a good look. But yeah, it's a little bit of a shortcut. Probably could have. Yeah, I kind of agree. His opening scene is a little off-putting, but otherwise I settled into him pretty well.
Okay, fair.
Yeah.
This is a movie that again proves that the power of the sports montage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't have a third of it filling the movie like Rocky IV, but
there's plenty.
Yeah. I mean, but that's it. What else can you do here? Like you're trying to be efficient with time and show the, first the trial and tribulations of their journey together, right? That they're opposites, that they're not clicking, that we have to see a lot happen in a short period of time.
Yeah, there's no better tool in a sports movie than the training montage. Like, it is, I don't even think you can do a sports movie without having training montage. It would not be right. It would feel weird.
It would, it'd be very strange to not have it in there. And again, that's part of the formula. But it would feel weird not to see that, even if it's a short one.
Yeah, you got to have it in there.
So you see, we see the montage of them, not clicking, missing the toe pick line, that's
toe pick.
Yeah, great little catchphrase here.
Toe pick. Toe pick. Toe pick.
and then then we're going to have the conflict between the two of them. That
Of course.
it's either going to blow up, and of course it does, and they try to separate, but they're forced back together, and then them starting to click and starting to gel, and then it all kind of fusing as they realize they actually have there's little snippets of it throughout of like, oh, they touched hands, like, oh, they their hands connected and held, and like they make that eye contact that like they both felt something there. That I like how they kind of peppered that in. It didn't feel super forced.
Right. Well, I mean, in the first time she touches his hand, she like makes a comment about, I don't know, like washing in battery acid or something along those
He's
lines.
a working man.
Because he's a working man with like aggressively calloused hands, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And so for her to kind of in that scene look down at his hand and be accepting of it is also a nice little nod back to that line from earlier.
Yeah. And then later on too, as an interesting scene going back to like how he treats women, when she gets, I think they're both drunk at the party, and then she is really being sort of physically like offering herself to him, and he doesn't go. Yeah, very forward, and he doesn't go for it. That he is respectful of her and knows it's not right. But I think he's acknowledging too that he has those feelings for her too, but he doesn't want to ruin it by waking up the next morning and they'll both regret how it happened.
Right.
Yeah.
He does the gentlemanly thing and turns her down because she's not sober.
Right.
And she gets upset and he leaves.
Yeah. And then
he's propositioned later.
He is propositioned 20 minutes later.
But she's sober.
Right.
And comes on rather strong, but he does not. She's sober, but it seems like he's got bottles of alcohol that he's just downing right in front of him. So he's sort of taken advantage of. Right.
Yeah, he thinks he takes it a couple beats to really think about letting her in, and who knows, if he was stone sober, maybe he wouldn't have. But he made some choices, as we all do when we have a little too much.
But that's like the final obstacle, right? Like you got to have it.
Yeah,
it's the formula. The formula calls for a final obstacle.
Yep,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And then let's talk about, David. I know it's a move you've practiced over and over. We've worked this through, the Pamchenko. It is brutal. What is that move?
It's also fucking ridiculous. This is another thing that roots it in the early 90s. That's just like, what? Like, this is not even.
That's impossible.
It's not possible. It's not possible at all.
It's hard to even describe what that move is, but the velocity with which he's swinging her body around does not seem right.
No, I mean I guess that's been part of skating programs in the past, that that centrifugal like move, but never, the whole idea was that he's going to toss her so high up in the air, she does a spin move, and then he's skating forward and catches her as she comes down. I mean, it's a lot, and she'd have to hit so much air that she's not involved with. He has to throw her. That's it. Like, it's all upper body strength.
Yeah.
And you can't really do it. So of course you have to they cut around it in the shooting, because you can't really do that. I mean, I'm sure with enough training you could pull off a stunt or something, but like to do it live like that, like at all, or anything close to that, just seems ridiculous. I don't know.
That's
in 1990. That's the 1992. I don't know where figure skating is today. Like, I mean, every sport the challenges get tougher and tougher, and the accomplishments and achievements get more and more crazy, just so who knows. I don't know what they're doing today, so forgive me, figure skating fans out there. I don't know if that's still if that's impossible anymore, but it sure seems it.
Yeah, that was a reach for sure, literally and figuratively.
But whose idea was that?
Yeah, who came up with the Pamchenko? And when she when they're practicing and it's not working, and he, the way she just slams down on the ice, I'm like, my God. And Moira Kelly, by the way, did in the first week of shooting, she broke or fractured her ankle, so they had to move all the skating work to the end of the shoot and shoot everything else first. And it ended up costing her. She was up for the Lori Petty role in A League of Their Own. And
that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Yeah. And that's tough because that injury cost her that movie. And that was such a huge movie. Again, you can check it out in the archives at ReconCinemation.com. And good for Lori Petty that it worked out. But it was real unfortunate for Moira Kelly. So. But just showing the physicality of they were certainly doing a lot of this work.
Yeah, I guess so. It's they know there has to be a lot of acting and skating, of just casual skating on the ice.
Yeah.
And things when you can tell it's really them. So yeah, I've never ice skated, and I've gone roller skating and I don't like it. I didn't like it. I was a child, but I didn't like it. I didn't have the control and the center of gravity.
And one thing that bugged me too was Doug's eye injury, which is what costs him his hockey career. How does that not affect his skating career?
Well,
how does that? I don't understand.
I think he doesn't have a peripheral vision.
Yeah, it's the peripheral vision, right? So he said he has a blind side. I think a blind side in hockey would be much more detrimental than in figure skating, because you've got to protect yourself. You don't want to be unprotected against someone coming to check you or whatever. So the physicality of hockey, I think, requires for you to have that periphery. I don't think figure skating is as necessary. Yeah, I mean.
Although maybe it's something you could have worked in. You could have kind of come back to that note a little bit, and just to give his character another obstacle to kind of overcome.
Stop ending up at my blind side. You have to learn how to live with your blind side.
That was the original title, was The Blind Side.
Yeah.
Saved for later, but imagine that, Sandra Bullock. Late 90s Sandra Bullock in this movie. Come on. Keanu and Sandra, talk about
Keanu.
Yeah,
maybe
I could see that version of this movie, like we were talking about earlier. If you were going to put mega stars in it, Keanu and Sandra, come on, get them back together.
I think Keanu and DB Sweeney worked together in Hardball, right? Weren't they?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they're
Small world. And then were you guys, we mentioned it earlier, but emotionally, were you on board with the end of the film as they, get into the championships and they're on the rink, they're in unison, and their characters finally say it out loud that they're in love with each other?
Yeah, it's cute.
I'm on board. I mean, I didn't punch the back of the seat in front of me like I did at the end of Rocky IV when Rocky beat Drago, but I was still on board 100%.
So I mean, if we're really leaning into the 90s artifact of it all, it's like it's perfect. This is the standard right here. This is how you do it.
Well, and I like that we hit it at the very end of the movie. We didn't hit it 3/4 through the movie and then have that last finale where they're in the relationship with each other. It's they got to that moment without having the culmination of the love story, and then we finally that's what really ends our movie.
Yeah. It's nice to have the timing of them winning the Nationals and them winning each other be at the same moment.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I did appreciate that, because I think there's a million different versions of this movie that are a lot worse and cheesier and, can really muddy it up. But I like where it landed here.
Quick question though, to get back to the cast though, is Donald Pleasance in this movie? Is that guy
He should
Donald
be.
Pleasance?
Which guy?
The coach?
Roy Dotrice, you know,
No,
that I'm like, that's Donald Pleasance. What the hell? Like, of course, I knew it wasn't, but there's a vibe, man. There's an energy.
It's not a Halloween movie, so it's not Donald Pleasant.
Well, I looked it up. They're only 4 years difference in age. You know, they were both born like 1919 and like 1923 or whatever. It was like the age range. So, but
Yeah.
I'm you know, there was an energy. I'm like, I know it wasn't him, but I'm just like, oh, he could have, he should. Like, I don't know. They're both
He had a pleasantness. He had a pleasantness about him.
Yeah, I totally see that.
Yeah,
I get that.
And I mean, he's a huge UK actor and I think he worked until he died. So
yeah.
So you know, so no disrespect to Roy Dotrice or Donald Pleasance at all, but it's sort of like
there's an energy.
It's like certain scenes I'm watching, I'm like, is that Lyndon Ashby on the ice? Are we not sure that's Lyndon Ashby?
I thought I saw Scott Hamilton skating around there, and I checked the credits. And it's like, oh, he's a technical advisor. You know, nope, he wasn't. So,
well, I just mean to say that like DB Sweeney and Lyndon Ashby are kind of, you know, they're not the same person at all. But
I love it. I would have bought Lyndon Ashby in this role.
Yeah,
definitely. Did you another Rocky connection, Rocky 4 connection? Did you catch the score, the music that's playing in the championship montage? That's Hearts on Fire. I mean,
caught it. I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
100% Rocky moment. I was like, oh my god.
I mean, that had to be intentional. That was a complete nod to that.
Of course, right? Like it had to be.
Yeah.
They probably had to get the rights for that because
it's not though. They probably didn't because it's not exactly Hearts on Fire. There's like the chorus that sounds exactly like it, and then afterwards it's one of those that like there's enough changes where you could probably argue it's a different song.
Perhaps, yeah. I guess so. It's so, but I mean, there's just yeah. So that was nice to you know, another sports movie honoring the Rocky franchise.
Yeah. And then, you know, I was also kind of a sucker for the end and emotionally, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I bought it. And then you end the movie with a Joe Cocker song written by Diane Warren. Feels like forever. Forget about it. I'm there. I'm totally there.
So nice.
I'm glad you got there, John, because I know while you were watching it, you were sending me texts like, what are we doing? I had to turn it off after 20 minutes. I'm glad that this turned into, you get it. Like you understand the cult fascination with this movie after letting yourself succumb to its whimsy and charm.
Yeah, I did struggle the first half of the movie of like, if it's just the formula, why are we watching? Why do we care? We know what happens without seeing the movie. So why? But there's something about the charm of it. And sometimes my occasional yearning for the 90s, those straightforward 90s movies, I'm like, you know what? Sometimes simple is better.
Yeah. Let's just not make it complicated.
Yeah. Should we talk a little box office glory and see how this one did?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
The Cutting Edge was shot in the fall of 1991. It opened March 27th, 1992 at number 6.
Oh boy.
Opened up number 6. So not a great opening, but it was up against, talk about this for a weekend for sports movies. White Men Can't Jump, Ladybugs, and The Cutting Edge all opened the same weekend.
Wow.
They all opened? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Basketball, soccer, hockey, or hockey/skating. So
I remember White Men Can't Jump being a pretty big deal when it came out. I saw that at the theater. That explains why this one got completely overlooked by me at the time.
Yeah, it was that was a very impactful movie at the time, and There's I don't think it's necessarily aged as well as everybody remembers it, but and of course there was a remake last year.
That remake though.
That remake.
You haven't seen that remake, folks.
Get on there.
Maybe
Streaming
take
on
a
Hulu
look.
as of this recording.
And I shouldn't say it's a remake; it's a new version, modernized version of it. But yeah,
That's what we call a remake.
That's a remake.
yeah. And they're different characters. They're not. It's not quite
Listen,
the same.
I know you want to split hairs here, buddy, but it's a remake. Let's go. Come on.
But yeah,
Keep it
the original
simple.
that was a tough movie to kind of overcome here, and I think the Wesley Snipes star was already on the rise. Woody was a star from Cheers, so I think it was in the moment. I think something that clicked more than the Cutting Edge did, but. Cutting Edge lands right between Ladybugs, so Ladybugs number 5 and Fried Green Tomatoes, which was in week like 14.
Saw that at the
behind
theater
it.
too.
Yeah.
It's the only time I've seen it.
The opening week was $4.5 million. It ended up with a $25.1 million domestic run. So probably, yeah, I don't have the exact budget, but it probably broke even. It doesn't seem like it's a major hit. Maybe made a little bit of money, but not much. It ends up as number 51 of 1992, right between Hoffa and Thunderheart.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And topping the box office in 1992 was Aladdin, Home Alone 2, and Batman Returns. So definitely some popular sequels up there. But
92
the Cutting
seems
Edge
kind of
really,
like a weak year for movies. I'm not gonna lie.
92, yeah, it's an interesting.
Not-
it feels like a very transition kind of year. That there's,
Yeah, not. I mean, I love Aladdin. Home Alone 2 is great. Batman Returns is great. But like, if those are your top movies of that year, like, that doesn't seem. I get Batman Returns, but anyway,
You don't get Home Alone 2?
Home Alone 2 is good. I mean, off the success of the first movie, I of course get Home Alone 2, but yeah,
yeah.
seems like a week.
Well,
seems like a weak year. 92.
91 and 92 are like interesting sort of bridge years that you have. 89 and 90, you've got these giant movies like Batman and Last Crusade and Back to the Future movies, Home Alone, Goodfellas, Dances with Wolves, like these very kind of iconic movies. 91, you get a little bit, you get Terminator 2, you get Robin Hood, but it's a little slower. 92, you've got King Ralph floating around out there.
King Ralph. I forgot about that.
Not quite as epic, but then 93, comes Jurassic Park, and then the rise of Tom Hanks and Quentin Tarantino right behind that, and Schindler's List, and so it's like kind of a quieter year in between some bigger years.
Yeah, fair.
Kind of a perfect time for Cutting Edge to like
perfect
step in
time
there, really. But it doesn't really find its true life until it hits video stores and home video. And it was one of those that when I was working at Suncoast, Cutting Edge, and part of why I think my colleague played it was that it sold. When it was playing, people were coming in, browsing, and they would buy it. So it worked.
Yep.
And it got this kind of, when you think of cult movies, I don't think you always think of like romantic comedies or these lighter kind of films. Like you think like Twin Peaks and, like Evil Dead 2, and at least in my history, kind of darker films. Like this was one of those that quietly people were loving this movie and not discovering it till, definitely until after it was on video.
Yeah.
That's why, guys, this is why video stores, I'm going to harp on it again, are so important. That physical browsing versus scrolling through, a streamer that has just pictures of stars on it. If that's the case, you're probably going to pass over the Cutting Edge because you don't recognize them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's interesting. I definitely miss the days of being able to browse the aisles of the video store. I don't know that they'll ever make a strong comeback, but man, if you do have a video store in your neighborhood, a local mom and pop, you should take a minute, take your kids, walk through there, Look at the VHS box art or the DVD box art, and like find those hidden gems. Because I feel like cult movies and being able to like randomly find movies just based off some compelling box art and awesome synopsis off the back of the box is it's a dying thing, and it's sad because I think a lot of the cult movies that people love today were found by doing just that.
Where else are you going to find a 3-word blurb from Rex Reed and what he thought about the movie?
Exactly right.
Yeah, totally in support of that. So any of your local video stores in Southern California, we've got Videotech, we've got Vidiots. There's others still floating around out there. But you gotta find them and support them, or they won't be around. So, but there were, believe it or not, there were 3 sequels to this movie, and none of which star DB Sweeney or Moira Kelly. They made a pact with each other that they were not going to do a sequel without each other. So if one wasn't in, the other wasn't going to do it. So, and they held true to that. They would actually reunite in DB Sweeney's, I don't know if it was his directorial debut, but a film he directed called
he
Two
wrote
Tickets
and
to
directed.
Paradise. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote and directed Two Tickets to Paradise.
So that's cool that the actors would kind of continue together. The 3 sequels, all straight to video, kind of pick up. They kind of, obviously, if they weren't going to recast those roles, we're going to move on without them, and or they do recast them, but in smaller roles in the second film where it's about their kid.
Yeah, I think they were TV specials done by ABC Family that aired starting in 2006. But yeah, it's they're not connected with DB and Moira. So.
Yeah, but enough of a following for somebody to decide to make continuations of that world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it goes to show that, there is definitely an audience. And again, what, 2000s, 14 years after the fact.
Yeah. Yep.
They're making 3 more. So
yeah,
there you go.
All right. So would you guys recommend this today for a modern audience to check out? What do you think? Or is it really for like, hey, our generation, watch it again?
I know my answer.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But
I would.
I had a fine time with it. It's fine. It's good. It's I appreciate what it is. I guess. But the only recommendation would be like, I'm looking for like a typical 90s like rom-com. Oh, okay, yeah, here. But yeah, I'm not gonna like start pitching like, hey, you should what you should watch? Check this out.
Well, but I mean, what context is someone going to ask you for a recommendation anyway? You're not going to just go up to a random stranger on the street and be like, hey,
of course. Well, I do.
Have you seen Cutting Edge?
I try to recommend movies to strangers when I can. If I'm feeling like
David patrols outside Recon Cinema Studios and it's just, hey, he
you
makes
like
cars
movies?
Pull over.
He drives around in his recommendation mobile and just
that's right.
blares it from the loudspeakers.
It's a souped up golf cart. Yeah, I agree, David. I kind of feel the same way that it's a very specific, audience that I think I would recommend this to, that, for younger audiences, I don't think would enjoy this movie. But for someone who's looking like, I just want a romantic, like a straightforward romantic comedy, then that's where I would slide this one in.
See, so both of you have said no, but I hear you both saying yes. So
yes, to a specific.
But that's
group.
that's how this movie would get recommended in any case, is specific circumstances, right? So,
some movies are universal. You want to get
maybe, yeah, like
if someone's just like, I can't think of a movie I want to watch, I just want to watch something, like this would not be on the top of the list,
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I still heard yes, you would recommend it though. That's,
If we hone in a little bit and I can zero in of like more in particular, like genre, time period,
I mean, so let's take it back to our last romantic comedy, one of our bigger ones from the holiday. So While You Were Sleeping, would you just randomly recommend While You Were Sleeping to people, or would it have to be under specific circumstances?
That would be specific also.
Yeah.
Same
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Princess Bride though is one
Yeah, I get
would
that.
be like, oh, I want to watch a movie. That's one of the top ones I recommend because it hits so many different and it holds up so well.
100%. Totally understand that. Princess Bride is a true like classic movie, like done well in every aspect, like one of Rob Reiner's greatest, of a list of great movies. Like I totally understand that. It is a foundational piece to cinema. Cutting Edge is not a foundational piece to cinema.
Right.
But I'm still hearing that you would recommend it. So
Yep.
so that's
Fair.
my point.
Fair.
You got us there.
Yeah. All right. So let's come back. 6 Degrees of ReconCinemation. Brent, you wanted us to connect the Princess Bride to the Cutting Edge.
See how it all works back together?
I think I've got a path if you'll accept it.
I'm so open to accepting.
Okay. Paul Michael Glazer who directed this film, also directed The Running Man starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'll do the same connection I did before. Arnold Schwarzenegger to Andre the Giant, who co-starred with him in Conan the Destroyer, Andre the Giant in The Princess Bride.
Okay. I'll accept it.
Okay.
I'll accept it.
I couldn't figure. I didn't really do it while we were going, so that's sorry about that. That's a
fine.
good
We'll
path.
just go with mine.
It's a good path. I also have one.
What do you
I
got?
will share. Cutting Edge, Dwyer Brown, who plays Moira Kelly's fiance before she realizes she's in love with Doug, is in Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams, Frank Whaley is in. He plays the young Archie Graham. Frank Whaley is in Little Monsters with Fred Savage. Fred Savage is in A Princess Bride.
I love it.
Okay.
That's great.
All right.
Yeah,
Wow.
we did it again. We
It's
rose
been
to
done.
the challenge. All right. Well, I think that's about it for the Cutting Edge. I think we mentioned earlier in sticking with that Olympic kind of theme. Let's do cool runnings. Let's do a little Olympic bobsledding. Let's get John Candy back on here. You guys good with that for our next episode?
I could not be more excited to get into candy.
Absolutely. It's gonna be great.
We'll go back to Camp Candy for a bit. So stay tuned for that. Please check us out. Check out our archives at ReconCinemation.com. We're on social media, ReconCinemation Podcast. Check us out there. Go back in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and give us a rating and a review. It always helps the show. And quick shout out and thank you to our friends, E.K. Wimmer for the theme music, Curtis Moore for the posters. Guys, I think we need to get back down to the ReconCinerink and work on our Pamchenkos because we're not nailing it yet. So we'll
make it out alive.
I know. Let's get back down there, and we'll see you next time on ReconCinemation.
Take care.
Bye now.
I'm sorry, my timing, I know it stinks, but I just keep thinking this thing with us, it's gonna go away. I keep thinking if I can just keep moving and checking, I'll get clear. But do you understand what I'm telling you?
I don't want to fight anymore.
No, I mean, yeah, I don't want to fight anymore.
We have to skate.
This won't wait. Kate, maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe you didn't give me much of a chance. Maybe, I don't know. I just...
Mosley, Dorsey, une minute.
Kate, somewhere in the middle of all this, I fell in love with you. You may take the app. I'm saying I love you. I'm saying it out loud.
Les concurrents suivants représentant les États-Unis sont Mosley et Dorsey.
Don't say we're not right for each other, because the way I see it, we might not be right for anybody else.
I have to go on.
Just shut up a minute. It can't be any harder to stay together than it was to stay apart.
Vous avez 30 secondes pour mes questions. 30 seconds.
Will you wait a minute?
On peut pas arrêter la programme. Il y a quelque chose d'important.
I need you.
Mademoiselle.
I need you.
We're doing the Pemchenko.
S'il vous plaît, mademoiselle. What?
Oh, you heard me.
You think I'm doing all this to get a program out of you?
You want to win, don't you?
Both of you have this.
It's no good, Kate. It's too dangerous.
And we agreed. I'm putting it in.
Mademoiselle.